Hello, my friend. Welcome to the Chronically Me podcast. I'm your host, Aimee Esther, and in today's episode, we are talking about embarrassment when you live chronically ill. If you live chronically ill like me and are looking for more purpose, control, and joy in your life, then you are in the right place. This is the podcast that challenges your thinking around chronic illness so you can live the most amazing life despite extra challenges. Are you ready? Let's go. Hi, friend. Welcome back. I'm excited for this episode today. We get a lot of questions over here about being embarrassed that you have to use a wheelchair, or that you have to bring your own food to dinner, or you have to wear a neck fan, or other things that you need to use that other people see, and it can be a little embarrassing. And people may or may not say stuff about it, but whether they say something or not, you might feel embarrassed. And especially if other people seem judgmental or they don't get it, it can be hard to still do the things that you need to do for your health if it's a little embarrassing to be doing those things. I know I feel that way all the time as someone who has a very young looking face as is, and I am still young at 28 years old, but I look very young. And then on top of it, I look very healthy from the outside. I have a lot of invisible illnesses nobody can see. I need some accommodations, such as a wheelchair. And when I take a wheelchair out in public, I feel embarrassed that people look at me like I'm a young, healthy girl who should be able to walk on her own. And I struggle, and I worry that people are judging me, or they're thinking that I'm just trying to have fun with the wheelchair and I'm not actually needing it and I'm taking it from someone who needs it. And it can be a little embarrassing, or to maybe have to leave somewhere early, or to have to rest after a very short activity, or not be able to do the things that other people are doing. And it can be embarrassing sometimes, and people don't get it. And so today we're going to talk about that. So first, I want to ask you a question. Why do we feel embarrassed? Why do you think you feel embarrassed? Now, I will tell you the reason why. It's a very simple answer, but it's because we are human beings and we have human brains, and our brains want to fit in. They want people to like us. Now, I go into depth about the brain and how it works and how you can use your own brain to cope and manage your chronic illness, no matter where you are at, no matter where your health is. And I think it's important to understand the way the brain works in order to do that. So I go into depth about that in my course, Chronically Me, the course and workbook. It's linked in the show notes, or head to AIMEEESTAGR, that's aimeeester.com, for more information about the course. If you want to go into depth about how your brain works and how you can use it to cope with your chronic illness and live the most amazing life. Because I don't know, I live an amazing life while living chronically ill. And it's because I understand how my brain works. So why in the world do we feel so embarrassed? Why do we want people to like us so much? It's because we have this primitive brain that wants to be liked. If you go back in time, there was a time where people had to be part of a pack in order to survive. Back in hunter-gatherer days, when people weren't members of a tribe, if they got left alone, they would literally die because they couldn't find the food. They wouldn't be protected from the beasts and the animals all over. They would actually die. And so our brains learned at that time, our primitive brains learned that if you're not a part of the pack, you will die. And it is very harmful to us. And so now today we still have that part of our brain that wants to be, quote, a part of the pack. It wants to be accepted. It wants to be loved, because our brains tell us if we're not loved, something is really wrong. We might die. And so we need to do that. Now, even though logically we know today we're not going to die if people don't accept us, the emotional part of our brain brings that back up, and it feels so hard when people don't accept us. Like, think about it. How often have you felt like your world is collapsing because other people don't accept you, because other people don't like you? Isn't it interesting that we put so much weight on other people liking us? I get 95% positive comments on my podcast and my YouTube channel, yet I get 5% of the trolls, of the mean people who find it helpful to write a mean comment, to tell me something they didn't like about something I said, or something they didn't like about the way I looked, or the things that I'm doing with my life. And those are the ones that weigh the most to me. Those are the ones that make me think, is this even worth it to put out more content on the internet? Is it even worth it to share things with other people because these people don't like it, even though 95% of the people who listen do like it and tell me they like it. And I have helped so many people. Those 5% of mean people are what bring the most weight. They are what tell me, Aimee, you're not good enough. Aimee, this content is not helpful to people. Aimee, people don't like you. You're not a part of the pack. People don't want to be around you. And even though it's a small percentage, we put a lot of weight on that because our brains tell us this is super important. It's scary to not be liked by people. We're afraid of anyone not liking us, even though it doesn't make sense since most people like us, right? You take the percentage of people who don't like you and the percentage of people who do like you, it's always going to be way bigger, the amount of people who like you and who trust you and who love you. And yet we put so much weight on the people who don't and the people who bring us down. And even more so, we put weight on what we think other people are thinking about us because we want to be liked so much, because we have that primitive brain that tells us if we're not liked, we are in danger. There's a big problem here. We put a lot of weight on what other people think of us. And we often decide what they're thinking without even asking them. We often look at facial expressions and think we know what they're thinking. We often don't even see someone and we already have decided that they don't like us or they're judging us or they don't like the things we're doing. And it's because we have human brains, okay? So first of all, I want you to realize that it's completely normal to feel this way. It is your brain working perfectly when it tells you you are not liked, or you might not be liked, or people might judge you, or people are judging you. That is your brain working normally. That is your brain trying to protect you, even though it doesn't make logical sense now in our age where we are physically safe if we are not liked. It still hits that emotional part of our brain and tells us something's really wrong if someone doesn't like me. So remind yourself that nothing is wrong with you for being embarrassed. There is nothing wrong with you for being embarrassed that you need to bring a wheelchair when you go to the grocery store. There's nothing wrong with you for being embarrassed that you have to bring a separate meal. There's nothing wrong with you for having to send a meal back or ask for clarifications on whether or not there is gluten in your meal if you're celiac, or having to talk to a manager if you go to a restaurant. There is nothing wrong with you being embarrassed about that. That is your brain working perfectly. And second, I want you to notice that everybody's doing the same thing. Even if you're not chronically ill, it doesn't matter. We all have this brain that thinks that we need to be liked and wants everybody to accept us. And every single person on this planet is thinking they might do it wrong. And they're thinking, what if this person doesn't like me? And they're thinking, did I say the wrong thing? We all have that. There's nothing special about you for being embarrassed in public. There's nothing special about having a desire to be wanted and to be liked. That is a normal thing, and we all do it. So when you're looking at someone, you're thinking, they're probably judging me. Guess what? They are thinking the same thing. They are thinking that person's probably judging me. And it may be that they're thinking it about you at the same time you're thinking about them. It could be that they are judging you, but they're thinking that about someone else. They all want to be liked. We all do. It's not a unique thing to want to be liked by other people. And the third thing I wanted to say is that most of the time, the fear that someone is judging us is not even real. Like, what we think they're thinking is probably not true. Sometimes people will say stuff. They'll say stuff rude, or they'll come out and tell you exactly what they think about you. And honestly, I think that's better than us thinking we know what they're thinking. Because when somebody says, hey, that's weird that you're using a wheelchair, or you shouldn't be using a wheelchair, or what's wrong with you? Why are you sitting out of this activity? then we know that that's what they're actually thinking, at least probably. Maybe they're thinking something different and they say different things than they think, but it's a lot more likely that that's what they're thinking than when we just see someone and we judge based on their facial expression or just based on the fact that we are judging ourselves and we're so scared of someone else judging us, then we are just deciding what they are thinking. I do this so often, especially with my husband. He always tells me, Aimee, you are putting words in my brain. That is not what I said. That's not what I thought. You're adding all this extra stuff to it. And how often do we do that? I just add extra things that I hear someone say, Aimee, it looks like you're really sick today. And then I add all this other stuff like, oh, they are just judging me. They think I'm being a baby. They think that I should be able to get up. They know that I was sick last time. And so they're just judging me that I'm still sick. No, I don't know what they're thinking. Maybe they are. But honestly, most of the time, we're probably wrong. Most of the time, they are probably thinking something different. Most of the time, they're probably more concerned about what people are thinking about them than thinking about you and judging you. And I think we know this logically, like most of us have heard that like our fear is coming from our own brains and the things that we think other people are thinking, they're probably not thinking. But I will say that that's still sometimes hard for me to believe in those moments where I feel judged. I can kind of talk myself out of it, but sometimes I genuinely feel like I can't get there. Like I can't believe that someone wouldn't be judging me. They say something or they do something or they have a certain reaction on their face that just gets to me, and I can't in that moment believe that it's not what they're actually thinking. I'm like, they're definitely judging me right now. This is definitely what they're doing. And raise your hand if you felt that way, where you're like, I know that this doesn't make sense and that I should just love myself as I am and not worry about other people and what they think about me. And that's what all the fun quotes on Pinterest are about, how we shouldn't care what other people think about us. But sometimes it's still hard to get there. So I wanted to share with you 3 ways that I help myself in those moments. In those moments when my brain cannot accept that fact that they're probably not thinking what I think they're thinking, I have 3 things that I go to. The first is that I like to remind myself that being embarrassed is not a problem. And that thinking that other people should like me and should accept me exactly as I am isn't a problem. Like I said, that's our brains being human brains. That's how they're supposed to be. And when I remind myself that it's okay to be embarrassed right now, it's okay that I'm embarrassed when I ride around in my wheelchair at IKEA and I look perfectly healthy. And occasionally I stand up to check out an item and I worry that people are judging me like, oh, she really didn't need that because she can walk. No, it's okay that I'm embarrassed in that moment. It makes sense why I'm embarrassed in that moment. And when I allow that, it actually lightens it. When I tell myself, Aimee, embarrassment, not a problem. Worrying what other people think about me, not an issue. That's okay, brain. You can do that. It makes sense why you're doing that. It actually lightens the embarrassment. And instead I tell myself, Aimee, what does embarrassment feel like? And I feel it in my body, and I usually feel it in my gut, and I feel like I'm going to throw up a little bit. And even though I know it's not a physical symptom, like I'm going to throw up, I feel a little nauseous because of that embarrassment. Because a lot of the times our emotions bring on some physical sensations. And so when I focus on that and like, hey, interesting body, an interesting brain, that you feel this emotion of embarrassment and then you feel kind of nauseous, that's really interesting. And guess what? It's not a problem. It's okay to feel embarrassed right now. It's okay to have the thoughts I'm having right now. And I just allow them, and then they lighten, and it's not so heavy and annoying, and I'm not trying to force myself to believe something that I don't actually believe. I did a whole episode about toxic positivity, and if thinking a certain way is toxic for you, and there are times where it's toxic for me, where it's not helpful for me to try to force myself to be, quote, positive, or to force myself to think differently than I am, or to tell myself, Aimee, it's a problem right now. You shouldn't be feeling embarrassed. No, of course I should be feeling embarrassed. I'm a human being who wants to be liked, and I have to sit in this wheelchair in order to get around the store, and I look perfectly healthy. Of course I'd be embarrassed right now. That's okay. And guess what? It lightens that load of embarrassment when I allow it to be there. The second thing I like to do, if that didn't work, is to go to worst case scenario. I know this might sound counterintuitive, but I'm telling you this works so well. So let me give you an example of when I use this. So let's say I get a wheelchair and I'm going around IKEA and I'm having fun because I believe in having fun. And if I'm using a wheelchair, let me tell you, I'm going to have fun with it because wheelchairs are fun. I'm not just going to go around rolling around annoyed. I want to have fun with it because life should be fun. So let's say I am rolling around in my wheelchair and I'm doing fun things. I'm spinning around and I'm having a lot of fun going through the hallways of IKEA with my husband. And we're laughing and joking. And I see someone who looks at me and I think that person's judging me. And I think they're probably thinking she's just playing around. That's just this young, healthy girl who's taking a wheelchair away from someone else and she doesn't really need it. She's just doing it to be funny. She thinks it's hilarious to take a wheelchair, even though other people who are sick will need it. And the truth is, obviously, that I have a condition called postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. And when I stand up too long, I get really dizzy and sick and sometimes pass out. And it's not very comfortable. And I get a lot of pain in a lot of places if I spend a lot of time standing up. And I want to sit down on the wheelchair. And the truth is, I want to have fun while I'm in that wheelchair. And that's the truth. But that person doesn't know it. Now, I could go explain it to them if I wanted to. Or I can just deal with my own stuff because they may or may not actually be thinking that. That's just what I think they're thinking. So what I do is I go to worst case scenario and I say, Aimee, worst case scenario right now is that that person is thinking exactly what I think that they're thinking, right? Worst case scenario is that they are judging me. They're thinking that I am just being a rowdy, young, healthy girl who is taking something away from someone else who needs it. And when I do that, I realize that it's not that big of a deal. And it's like, wait, even if they are thinking that, why does it matter to me? Even if they are thinking that, that's not on me, that's on them. Even if they are thinking that, I'm going to roll away and probably never see them again in my entire life. And if I do see them again, I probably won't recognize them because I saw them for 5 seconds. And realizing that worst case scenario is not that scary. My brain's telling me that this is scary and that something's really wrong and you're in danger if somebody doesn't like you. And it's like, wait a second, this random person at IKEA does not matter. They can go home and tell all their friends and family about this weird girl who was rolling around in a wheelchair and how she doesn't actually need it and how whatever my worst case scenario is in that moment, all the things she's saying about me, and it's like, wait a second, that doesn't matter. I literally don't even know her. Now, go to a situation where I do know them. Let's say I'm at a family dinner and I have to bring my own meal. And someone cooked this nice, beautiful dinner and they spent hours cooking it. And it's something that I can't eat because of the diet I'm on for my chronic illness, or because I'm celiac and I can't have gluten, or whatever reason we are on a certain food plan and we can't eat the food that someone made that we love and that loves us. And we show up and we say, oh, I'm so sorry I can't eat this food. I'm on this for my chronic illness. And they say something judgmental about not eating the food, or they make a look, or they tell me that I should just eat it in this moment and that it's rude for me not to eat it, or something like that. In those moments, I'm like, okay, worst case scenario is what? Worst case scenario is that they are upset at me for not eating this meal. The worst case scenario is that they feel bad that they spent all this time making this meal and I can't eat it. Worst case scenario is literally that they feel a feeling that's uncomfortable. That is worst case scenario. And even though as human beings, we don't want other people to feel uncomfortable, we don't want other people to feel emotions that are not fun, that's not that scary, right? And guess what? That person will get over it. Even if it takes a long time, eventually they'll get over it. And if they don't, that's not on you, which actually leads me to the third thing I like to do, which is to remind myself that I'm not in charge of other people's emotions and their thoughts, because their judgment isn't about me. It's about them. And I've talked about this concept before on the podcast, but what I mean by that is when somebody thinks, I can't believe this girl would ride a wheelchair in IKEA, even though she's young and healthy, that doesn't tell us anything about my health. that tells us about what they're thinking and how they view people who use wheelchairs that look healthy. It doesn't say anything about me because they don't know anything about me, right? And in that moment when someone makes me a meal and I don't eat it and they feel offended or sad by that, that's not about me either. That's about them. It has nothing to do with whether or not I eat the food or not. Somebody can make a meal and 0 people can eat it and they can still feel proud of what they made. My husband has gotten really into cooking, and sometimes he makes things that I can't eat, and he does not feel bad that I don't eat them. But he's so proud of the meals he makes that he tells people about it. He sends pictures of them to our family group chat, and he makes them for other people. He's so proud of the things he makes, even if he only makes it for himself. Even if he makes it and then it goes bad in the fridge and we end up throwing it away, he is still proud of it. And that is not coming from who eats it and who doesn't eat it. It's coming from him. And yes, when someone eats your meal and says this is amazing, it might help you to have thoughts like, wow, I'm a really good cook. I'm so proud of myself. But you can have those thoughts without somebody eating your meal. And so when somebody does something or says something judgmental or they don't understand your illness or whatever, and you feel embarrassed about it, remember that what they're thinking or saying or doing isn't actually about you. It's about them. So let's give them back their emotions and their thoughts. Let's let them deal with those. And if they are struggling with feeling an emotion that they don't like to feel, that is on them to deal with it. You are welcome to help them in any way you can. You're welcome to be kind and loving. Please do that. But it's not on you to change their emotion. So if they are feeling bad that you're not eating the meal, it's not your responsibility to then eat the meal so they feel good. In fact, they probably still wouldn't feel good. If you had already told them, no, I'm not going to eat that, and they see you get sick about it, that's probably not going to make them feel good anyway, right? And so it's not your job. It's their job to find the appreciation in themselves. It's not your job. And we have to take care of ourselves, and we do it in a loving way, and we're kind and loving to other people, and we do everything we can to build people up. I'm not saying that we purposely hurt people. Please do not purposely hurt people. But if we say, wow, this meal looks amazing, and I'm so sad I don't get to eat it. You are such a good cook. I'm so proud of everything that you've done. I really wish, genuinely, I really wish I could eat this because I'm so proud of you and because it looks amazing and it smells amazing. But I can't because it will be detrimental to my health. Or if we're out somewhere and somebody looks judgmental to us, we can just give them back their emotions. In those moments, I recommend not saying anything because what's the point? You're never going to see them again. But if you do, you can tell them the truth. Like, why don't we just tell people the truth? And then we let them deal with their own emotions. Because when we do that, it's a lot less heavy. You want to know what? I have a lot of emotions and thoughts to deal with of my own every day. When I'm trying to take on everybody else's, it's even heavier. It's too much. When I try to take on my kids' emotions and they're upset and I'm thinking, this is going to ruin my day because they're upset. No, it's okay that they're upset. It's okay that you're having a hard day. It's okay that you wanted this truck that we didn't get to buy at the store. It makes sense why you're so sad right now, but that doesn't mean I have to buy them the toy in order to make them stop feeling sad. And we might be able to see that in children, but it's the same in adults. If my husband's annoyed at me because I'm not eating his dinner, that's on him. It's not on me. And I can be kind and loving about it, and I can do my best to make it right and to help him feel appreciative, but that's not going to make him feel appreciative. There's nothing I can do or say that will force him to get into that. There's nothing I can do or say to force him to feel something. We might be able to influence people, but not all the time. So when we allow them their emotions and we're just kind and loving through all of it, it's a lot less heavy. And we deal with our own emotions about it. We deal with our own embarrassment about it and our own frustration about it. And we let them deal with theirs. And we be loving and kind through all of it. Because the truth is, you could say all the right things. You could do all the right things. And people will still judge you. People will still bring the hate. It's true. Now, I hope they don't to you, but they will. Like I said, with my YouTube channel, 95% of my comments are nice and kind and loving, and 5% aren't. And to me, I don't get it. I think if I don't like something that someone says, I just turn it off and I stop listening. I don't feel the need to go write a comment to them, but some people do. And that's on them. It means nothing about me. When somebody says this podcast sucks, why would you say that? That doesn't say anything about me. That says something about them. Like last week, I got so many mean comments all at once, and it was really overwhelming to me, and it was frustrating. And I got to the point where I told my husband, I just want to quit. I don't want to do this anymore. And I went and deleted all the comments, and they just happened to come all at once. Sometimes I just get one or two here and there, and I can forget about it, but it was a lot all in 1 week, and I think I let it get to me a lot. And I told my husband, I don't want to do this anymore. And he said, Aimee, but you're not remembering all the people you are helping. And we do that so much. We focus so much on the people that might be judging us or who are judging us or who are rude. And we don't focus on all the people who are loving us, who are looking at me in that wheelchair in that store and thinking, I feel so bad for her that she looks so young and healthy, and yet she's obviously not because she's in a wheelchair. And that's so sad. I wish that I could help her in some way. We're not noticing the people who are thinking that. We're noticing the people who give us a awkward stare or they say something rude. Those are the people we put a lot of weight on, not the people who are loving and kind. But there are more loving and kind people, I promise. I like to tell myself it's 90-10, and I like to expect that 10% will be crappy, rude people and judgmental people. If I just expect that, then it's not so hard. And even though I have moments like last week where I do let it get to me, when I remind myself that, oh yeah, remember the first episode of this podcast, I titled it, You Might Hate This Podcast? I titled that because people might hate it. And that's okay. And that 10% of the people who listen will hate it, but 90% will get something out of it and it will change their lives. Because 90% is a whole lot more than 10%. In our church, we believe in giving a 10% tithe back to the church. We believe that everything we have is really from God. And so we're giving 10% back. And oftentimes our brains will think, oh, 10% of what I made in this paycheck? Are you kidding me? That's so much money. And then you're not realizing there's 90%. That you get to keep and spend however you want. And we focus on the 10%. Isn't that interesting? The 10% that's negative, or the 10% of money that I'm giving away is the part that is hard to part with, even though I'm not noticing that there's 90%, this huge chunk, that I get to spend however I want. And it's the same for other people. 90% of people will be kind and loving and understanding. 10% will be terrible. And even if all those 10% come at the same time and it feels like it's heavy on you, like it did for me last week, it's only 10%. Remember the 90. I hope that was helpful for you if you are like me and ever feel embarrassed for living chronically ill and the certain things that we have to do to adapt. Have a wonderful day, my friend, and I'll see you on the next episode. Hey friend, do you find value in this podcast but want to take it to the next level? Work with me one-on-one or check out Chronically Me, the course and workbook. This course takes the things you are learning on the podcast and helps you apply them directly to your life. This course dives deeper into changing your thinking, teaching you how the brain works and how to maximize your life with chronic illness. I designed this course as a companion to the podcast. The podcast gives specific, real-world examples, and the course helps you put them into action. If you want personalized one-on-one help from me, I got you. I also offer individual coaching programs where we can talk about the problems you are facing. I'll help you manage your brain and find solutions to nearly every problem that you have. We will walk hand in hand on this journey together. Check the show notes or the video description on YouTube for more information on getting extra help from me. Talk to you soon.